Hello, B. I am throwing away my anonymity in front of you as I share my story. My real name is Brandon, and I came to you tonight to tell you a tale about that popular girl. Yeah, we all know her. Bitchy, thinks she's too good for you, and just has that attitude that no one can stand. But I knew that girl long before she even became popular. Her name is Claire. I've known this girl since I was 3 years old. Her mom and my mom were neighbors, so we would go over to each other's houses practically every day. Me and Claire would literally do everything together. Every Friday we would sneak out to the woods behind our houses and play around in the creek until the sun started to set. We would both then hold hands while we walked back to our homes. One day, in fall, it was raining, and my mother told us not to go to the creek as it had swelled. Claire didn't really feel like going, but I headed out to the creek anyway, and she eventually followed. Sure enough, the creek had swelled to well over 3 times its normal size. I got to the very edge, and soon the mud beneath my feet collapsed, and I fell in. The current was strong and soon carried me down the creek. I desperately tried to grab onto anything I could. I managed to grab onto a rope that was tied to a tree nearby. I could see Claire running towards me, waving her arms and screaming my name. All I recall is huddling against her for warmth on a pile of leaves, and waking up in a hospital bed with a picture next to me of the two of us married together. I don't remember much of any other details aside from being very afraid of large amounts of water since that day. Around 4th grade, we were separated in different classrooms, and would only see each other at lunch. But back then she would hang out with the girls and I would stay by myself, watching her from a distance. I know that sounds creepy, but I was young. When school was over, she would wait for me and I would walk her home. When we got into junior high, she would refuse to even acknowledge my existence. I wasn't one of the cool kids, and Claire wanted to be Miss Popular, so she couldn't be seen with me. She surrounded herself with the popular boys around the school. Of course, we were only around 11 back then, and the relationships didn't last long. Throughout my entire stay in junior high, I was asked out by about 12 different girls, but I always turned them down. When high school hit, it was even worse than junior high. She soon began mocking me in front of our peers. I was the uncool kid, and she used me to gain her fame. It worked. I tried my hardest to avoid being around her, as every time I came in contact with her, she would make me the center of attention by calling me names and ridiculing me around large groups of people. Now that I think about it, I had less than 4 friends throughout high school, thanks to her. Even though she constantly made my life hell, I would be in spirals of nostalgia when I watched her from a distance. To this day, I would give up everything just to be a kid again so I could spend one day with her. Around junior year, a boy named Garrett asked Claire to prom. His mom worked for the school, so she was able to pull some strings and allow him to use the intercom for his proposal. She was absolutely ecstatic. Claire was in my math class, and I could hear her bragging about it to her friends. She caught me staring at her from across the room and gave me a glare that I will never forget. Anyway, about a week before prom, I hear a knock at my door, and it's none other than Claire. She's bawling at my front door because she found out Garrett made out with another girl, or some shit. Being the pushover I am, I let her in and console her. I lead her up to my room and hold her in my arms. I didn't even want to take advantage of her and sleep with her. Just being this close to her and thinking about our childhoods was enough for me. By the time she was finished bawling, I told her I would take her to prom if she wanted. She immediately gave me a hug and a kiss on the cheek. We got in my car, drove to our old houses, and walked to the creek we used to hang out at. I was surrounded by a blanket of comfort as I laid next to her. Soon I was overwhelmed by it all and fell asleep. By the time I woke up, she was already gone. I figured she had to go somewhere. A week passed and it was finally prom. I paid $150 for my ticket, since I didn't buy it until they raised the price to its maximum. I rented a suit, bought a dozen roses, put on some of my dad's expensive cologne. I looked like $1 million. I drove over to Claire's house and knocked on the door. She answered with a smile on her face, and I was absolutely speechless at how beautiful she looked. She gave me a wink as she grabbed my hand and led me to the backyard. From the sliding glass door, I could see some of her friends waiting. I figured that we were going to take some post-prom pictures of each other like couples usually do. When I finally reached the backyard, I immediately spotted Garrett, and I knew something was up. Claire, knowing I was still afraid of water, pushed me into her pool and just watched as I hysterically tried to grab onto something and gasped for air. As I was frantically splashing around, I could hear them all laughing at me. It was only until I was about to drown that one of her friends half-heartedly grabbed me out of the pool and told me to leave before things got worse. I walked out of the side gate with my head down and my clothes dripping wet. I got the fuck out of there and sat at a park for a few hours, so my mom would at least think that I went to the prom. Even right now, I would not be able to bring up the courage to tell her how coldly my childhood friend treated me all those years. Anyway, when I returned to school, pretty much everyone knew what had happened, and no one would even sit by me at the lunch table. Throughout the rest of high school, I pretty much minded my own business. I dated a few girls, but the relationships never lasted long. All of them said I seemed distracted by someone else. I didn't see much of Claire through the last days of high school, and we finally graduated. I remember watching closely as she walked across the stage, and desperately trying to make eye contact with her, but failing. I stood in the parking lot watching everybody else cheering and hugging each other, knowing that that was something that I would never be a part of. I spotted Claire walking with her friends at the far side of the parking lot, and I just couldn't stand it anymore. I ran as fast as I could. I finally reached her just before she got in the car and asked her if she wanted to come home with me and just watch a movie. She immediately laughed in my face along with her friends and drove off. I was crushed. One of the few friends I had talked me into going to a party with him. I didn't feel being around other people, but felt like a few drinks would cheer me up. Of course, when I got there, no one really knew who I was, and besides seeing a few familiar faces, I didn't know them either. About 40 minutes passes when Claire walks through the door and pretends that I'm not there for obvious reasons. I mind my own business, and she minds hers. Maybe it was the alcohol, but for some reason I decided to stay at the party. Things started to get moving, and people were really enjoying themselves. I took a walk outside for some fresh air and a cigarette. I have no idea the exact amount of time I was gone, but I'm guessing it was somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. When I returned, I immediately heard cheering, even before I entered the door. My first thought was that a fight had broken out and that I should leave before the cops show up. Curiosity got the best of me. I made my way through the crowd to see it was Claire. She was heavily intoxicated and was blowing 3 different guys in front of everyone. A 4th guy was fingering her as I felt warm tears rolling down my cheeks. At that moment, I didn't give a fuck about it if my faggot peers saw me crying. I could no longer bear to watch. My white knight kicked in and I pushed all 4 guys aside. I picked her up in my arms, but soon heard her screeching loudly in my ear. Claire was flailing her arms all about and slapping me in the face. One of the guys she was blowing grabbed her from me and punched me in the face. I was soon being beaten by all 4 of them. It took some of the other kids from the party to finally pull them off. I couldn't see because of all the blood that surrounded my eyelids, but I could hear Claire screaming something. At first it didn't register what she was saying, but I finally made out the words. "Fucking kill him. That disgusting small-dicked piece of shit." I will never forget those words. I felt someone splash ice-cold beer at my face, and to this day I have no doubt in my mind who it was. I felt some people drag me by my feet and toss me out onto the sidewalk in front of the house. I was too tired from the alcohol and from being beaten to get up and walk home. I slept there, and when I woke up, everyone was gone. Those events took place over a year ago, and that was the last time I saw her until I decided to make a Facebook account 3 weeks ago. Pic obviously related. And here we have the final Facebook conversation between Brandon and Claire. Brandon. Claire, I have no idea why you've treated me so horribly for so long, seemingly without reason. I've never done anything but show you kindness. I personally believe it's because you hate what you've become and can't stand to see something that belongs to your former self. Even after all this, even after all the ridicule you put me through, I am deeply ashamed to admit that I still have feelings for you. Claire. Well, you know what I think? I think you're a lonely little bitch, and have been chasing after me your entire life because you can't get anyone else, you fucking virgin. Stop trying to be some fucking hero and move on. Brandon. Maybe you're right. After all this time, I realize you just can't change a person. It's really true what they say. In the end, all you have are memories. I'm leaving tonight, so this is goodbye, Claire. The only reason I messaged you is because I don't give a shit about anyone else and just wanted to talk to you one last time. Claire. Brandon, when will you get it through your head that I don't give a fuck about you? Just because we were good friends way back doesn't mean I'm just gonna fall into your fucking arms. And why the fuck would you message me because you're moving? You really think I give a shit if I see you again? Brandon. I never said I was moving. As to why I keep trying to get back through to you, I guess it's because I miss all those times we had back when we were kids. Or maybe it's just because I'm grateful that you saved my life. I hope you don't ever regret anything that's happened between us. I just can't help but think it would have been a beautiful life. Claire. The fuck? You just said you were leaving. You know what, I don't really give a fuck. I honestly wish I'd just let you drown in that fucking creek, you cunt. Anyway, those times are over, and you can stop emailing me now. Okay, thanks, bye. So B, I don't care if you call me a faggot, or if you think this is just a troll. Tonight I've decided to kill myself. I don't expect sympathy, and don't try to talk me out of it because it's not going to work. Just give me one last thread to enjoy. And when this thread 404s, I'm going to go through with it. In case any of you were wondering, I'm using the helium exit bag method that gets posted on here every so often. You guys were literally the closest thing I ever had to friends.